It's already late. Where's Arjun?
He's looking for universities, right? Maybe he's held up there.
You look so tense. By the way, did you get to choose the university?
No, I'm unable to find a university that meets my requirements.
Whoa. Meet your requirements? What exactly are you looking for?
I'm looking for a place that gives me an opportunity to grow, to excel, to invent, and to innovate. I want to be a part of an institution that paves my way to discover myself and to witness the world moving forward in technology. I want to go to a place that sets a futuristic pattern of education filled with ideas and radical performances. Basically, I want to live my dream.
Dayanand Sagar University. Live the dream.
Start. Yeah. Good evening, students. Welcome to Larnodaya, organized by Dayanand Sagar University in collaboration with Vijay Karnataka and ISKCON Bangalore. Continuing our motivational series, the session 2, we have a very interesting session coming up, decoding digital distraction. Today we have a very special speaker, Sri Vishnu Ravi, who is an executive campus connect and the presenter of Hope Youth Empowerment Club of ISKCON Bangalore. Vishnu Ravi did his undergraduation in Electronics and Instrumentation Engineering from MS Ramaya Institute of Technology, Bangalore. During his engineering course, he took a keen interest in the philanthropical activities of ISKCON Bangalore and volunteered in many of the social cause initiatives. He also worked as an educator in a GRE department of unacademy.com. After completing his engineering course, he joined FOPE, the Youth Empowerment Club of ISKCON Bangalore, as an executive campus connect and later become a presenter. He has designed and conducted various workshops for students on academic, professional, personal, life balance, stress management, life enrichment programs, meditation techniques, all on the principles of Bhagavad Gita. So we welcome Sri Vishnu Ravi to take us through this session on decoding digital distractions.
Very hearty welcome to all the students who have joined us for today's session. Welcome all of you to Decoding Digital Distraction. You can notice on the screen an image shown in the PPT which glaringly hints us what we would be discussing today. So this session, I would like to dedicate this session to His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Let's begin this session by asking the fundamental question: what is the purpose of life? What do you think is the purpose of life? Now, some of you might be thinking, I think my purpose is to crack the CET examination, get a good college in Bangalore, and get a good company, get into a good company after my engineering. Well, some of you might be thinking, no, I have a goal to not only get into a good engineering college, but I also would like to get into a good college during my master's. I would like to do my studies abroad and get into universities like Harvard, like universities like MIT. So each one of you may have your own definition pertaining to what is the purpose of your life. But over here, let's look at what is common in all your purposes, in all your definitions of your ambitions. So if you consider the reason why you're striving hard to study, to progress in your academic career, you would come to the conclusion that the final goal is actually to simply experience joy and happiness. Joy and happiness. That is the final goal. That is the final result. So on the screen now, you can notice there is a question: what is the experience you get when you achieve that purpose? What is the experience that you get when you achieve that purpose? We have joy, bliss, contentment, satisfaction, peace. These are the common goals that people have in their minds. This is what you're looking for when you're trying to hang out with your friends, watch a movie in a theater, watch a cricket match, for instance. There is the ongoing India versus England series. The only reason that is driving you to stay glued on to utilizing digital technology is to experience joy and happiness. So in simple words, we can call it happiness. Happiness is the goal. Happiness is the final result that we are desiring. Now let's talk about what digital technology has done to us. Now, digital technology is something which has helped us experience, not only experience happiness, but expand happiness. It has expanded happiness. For instance, 20 years ago, or say 30 years ago, if someone wanted to communicate with a distant relative who is, say, in America, it was quite tedious. It was quite costly. But now, all we need to do is install, say, WhatsApp, and then you can have a video chat with your close relative or friend, and it's so easy. So let's look at what benefits, what are the gifts given by digital technology. So on the slide, we have listed some of the benefits that this technology has provided to us, beginning with social connectivity. You see, Facebook, for instance, gave this opportunity for all youngsters to connect with people in distant places with whom probably you would, it would take you several years to connect with if you go in the conventional way, where people used to study in India, then go abroad and then connect with people there. So now it has become very easy. So social connectivity has improved. People from various races, various backgrounds, irrespective of their gender, caste, religion, perspectives, opinions, political stance, can connect with one another. This is a huge boon. Social connectivity. And communication speeds have enhanced a lot. Earlier, we used to communicate using letters. Sometimes letters, it used to take a month or two for you to even know what the person is trying to communicate. But now, in a matter of few seconds, we can communicate. So there is social connectivity, communication speeds have enhanced, information storage, there is entertainment, and finally, all these technologies and advantages are provided at a very nominal, or I would say low cost. Like for instance, when Jio started, it kind of brought the whole market into control because they started providing internet 4G for a very low cost. And then we have news. Nowadays, in a matter of few seconds, we can get to know what is happening across the world. What is the, for instance, COVID situation in other countries can be known in a matter of few seconds. So these are some of the boons that digital technology has presented to the modern society. Moving ahead, let's look at the negative impacts of digital distraction. What are the negative impacts? You see, life is like a coin. You may want the head side of a coin, but when in the process of getting the head side of the coin, you would also have to get the tail side. Or in other words, we see a lot of dualities around us. You may believe that digital technology is going to only be beneficial, but it comes with its own demerits. I remember when I was like in the late 1990s, when I used to go to school, there was this game called Tetris that people used to play. Tetris is a simple game that, as shown on the slide, you can notice there are small blocks that drops down continuously on a digital screen, and you would have to control the blocks. You'll have to control the blocks. And as you play this game, the speed at which the blocks fall down keep increasing. So there would be a point of time. It's very similar to Temple Run. I'm sure most of you must have played this game, Temple Run. You begin where the guy is slowly walking, and then he jogs, and then he starts running faster, and the game starts getting faster and tougher. So there is a very striking realization that we can draw from this game. In the beginning, you get rewards, you feel happy, but later on, when the speed starts increasing, your attention gets fragmented. So eventually, you would lose control over your attention. And attention is the most important resource that we have. If you want to do something, you'll have to give attention to do that. You have to give attention to perform an activity. So the conclusion that James Williams tells in a book called Stand Out of a Light, where he talks about decoding digital distraction, is that the more information we receive, the less attention we can give to them. Or in other words, attention is inversely proportional to the abundance of information, the quantity of information. And digital technology has ensured that you can get unlimited information without paying any price. That is what we think, but we are actually paying the greatest price in the form of giving our attention. So this is an important point to consider. This is a very important point to consider. Let me give you an example. Suppose you are going from your place to another place, point A to point B, in order to, for instance, give you a CET examination. So you're going from your place to point B, and it's like 10 kilometers apart. Now, say you have like 2 hours left, and you'll have to reach your examination hall to give your examination. And in the meantime, you start noticing while traveling, there is a bakery. And so you tell yourself, let me just relax in the bakery. Let me go there and have some refreshments, and you go to the bakery. And then you proceed further, and you notice that there is a movie theater. And you tell yourself, all right, I think I have time. Let me just watch a movie before I go to the examination. You do that. And then finally, you realize that you have lost time. You're late. And you missed the examination. So you see, this is very relatable because this is a gross concept which you can relate with. But this is essentially what is happening to us when we are trying to use smartphones, when we are trying to use digital devices. We begin to use digital devices having a purpose in mind. That is, let me reach point B from point A. But during the course of our travel, we realize, we get distracted. Like for instance, say you decide to prepare for CET examination by solving past year question papers. And so you enter Google and start typing CET past year examination question papers. So you start typing and you get a few websites, you start browsing those websites, and all of a sudden there'll be an ad. Check out the latest comment made by MS Dhoni on the upcoming IPL 2021. That's it. So you'll click on that, and then that will take you to the IPL website. And then there will be a news there. Virat Kohli no longer is going to play for RCB. And then you'll be like, well, what's going on here? And so you'll click that. And then there will be a match recap of a previous IPL game. You'll click that. And then after 1 hour, you'll realize that, oh my God, I started using Google with an intention to prepare for my past year, solve past year CET examination papers. But now 1 hour has passed and all my time has gone in watching cricket-related subject matters. So you see, this is how technology kind of subtly causes a deception. It's a deception where we get deviated. So now let's look at what is the impact of digital technology on various facets of life, beginning with family. How is family affected by digital technology? Nowadays, especially, you can get to read in newspapers, for instance, a news such as this: man kills wife for ignoring kids due to Facebook, WhatsApp addiction. Husband kills son for playing PUBG. So you get to hear so many negative subject matters nowadays, especially because of digital addiction, digital distraction. In fact, nowadays, people, although they may sit with their family and with an intention to speak with their family members, they may end up using their smartphones. So let's now look at a small video on surfing time versus family time. So I request all the participants to turn their attention towards the screen. It was same thing. It was only introduction. Well, I think we can continue because although it was just introduction part. Okay, fine, sure. First slide is offline. So that was the video which depicted how mostly surfing time is more than family time. The time that we spend for a family is hardly anything when compared to the time we spend for smartphones. All right, so for the benefit of the ones who might have just joined, I'll make a quick recap of what we discussed. Going back, we touched upon how digital distraction is such that It has affected relationships, it has affected family. We saw the impact on family. And prior to that, I gave the example of how this game, Tetris, can give us this realization that when things are too fast, then we lose our attention, which is the most valuable resource. So that came under the category of the negative impacts on digital distraction. And prior to that, we focused on and listed some of the positive contributions of digital distraction. We refer to how now we have high internet speeds. The social connectivity has improved a lot. So these were some of the things that we discussed. Now proceeding to the next segment of this session, let's look at how digital distraction has impacted and affected the following area: health and emotional well-being. You would find innumerable articles in newspapers today reporting how there has been a very non-congenial, a very destructive impact on health and well-being due to digital distractions. So on this slide, we have 3 points. The first point refers to how digital distraction has harmed our brains. It physically changes the structure of the prefrontal brain, which is responsible for the generation of neurons, brain cells that help us think. And this has affected the white and gray amount in the brain. Then we have the next point: digital distraction leads to obesity and cardiovascular diseases. Not only that, but it contributes to depression. In fact, 75% of internet users confessed that digital distraction has affected them, has had a non-congenial effect on their lives. In fact, it has changed their life so much that it has changed the way we behave with our own parents, for example. So here we have a video coming up: impact on interpersonal relationships. Is online relationship more important than real-time relationship? So I request all the participants to stay tuned while the video would be played in a few seconds.
कौन सी वाली पोस्ट करूँ? ये वाली? Papa's not looking into the camera in this यार. इसमें तो मेरी डबल चिन दिख रही है. ये वाली ठीक है वैसे. But I really like better than this यार. हाँ, ये हुई ना 100 likes वाली pic. अच्छा, वो अच्छा है, right. कहीं से कोई quotation copy कर लेती हूँ. नहीं पर should be personal ना. Celebrating Father's Day with my superhero. या फिर coolest dad in town? नहीं यार, superhero वाला ही best है. Hashtag Daddy's Girl. Hashtag Daddy's Day Out. Hashtag Making Memories. Nice. You know what? Let me just post it before everyone starts sharing their Father's Day pics. Cool. 10 likes already. Not bad. Gosh. Priya. Jimmy. ये Jimmy कौन है? Profile pic भी weird है. I mean, who posts a picture like that? Wow, this is a funny picture of Riya. When did she wear this dress? Wait,
So we just saw the video of how, a girl is sitting on Father's Day and texting, using her phone to share photos with her father while her father was sitting right in front of her. So this is how the society is changing. We prefer to show off, our memories with others, but not spend time with our own parents, not spend time with our own family members when they are with us. So there is a very famous saying that Chanakya Pandit, a great politician, makes. He says, anything that is too much becomes poisonous. And he says, even nectar is poisonous when consumed in excess. So we will be talking soon about the importance of nurturing and embracing healthy boundaries in our lives. Before that, we will see another video. So request all the participants to give full attention to the video that would be played in a few seconds.
Mama, your phone's ringing. Mama, phone.
गुड मॉर्निंग, सुप्रभात।
व्हाट्सएप काका।
अस्सलाम वालेकुम, सत श्री अकाल, हैव अ नाइस डे।
क्या बड़बड़ा रहे हैं आप?
हैप्पी गुड फ्राइडे, हैप्पी गुड़ी पड़वा,
क्या हुआ
हैप्पी
आपको?
इंजीनियर्स डे। पप्पू रॉक्स, मॉम शॉक्स। यूनेस्को हैज डिक्लेयर्ड मोदी जी एज द बेस्ट पीएम इन द वर्ल्ड। बरखा की मां ईसाई है, चंदन रगड़ने से होगा स्वाइन फ्लू का इलाज। आज दाढ़ी बनाने से शनि देवता होंगे नाराज। एफिल टावर असल में बनाया था भुज में रहने वाले जमुना भाई ने। लिविंग टावर पहले सीधा था, उसे टेढ़ा किया लखनऊ के पीसा भाई ने। ताजमहल नहीं, शिव मंदिर। पापा का वॉइस नोट है, हरे रामा एलोपैथी रॉक्स, एलोपैथी शॉक्स। आज 4 लीटर पानी ज्यादा पीना क्योंकि आज सूर्य ग्रहण।
होश में आओ, व्हाट्सएप काका।
इमोजी, इंद्रधनुष इमोजी, बिल्ली का इमोजी, पीला हार्ट, ब्लू हार्ट, लाल हार्ट, ग्रीन हार्ट।
मेरे तरफ देखो व्हाट्सएप काका।
मैं व्हाट्सएप बनना चाहता हूँ, मैं न्यूज नहीं बनना चाहता। नहीं।
ये वीडियोस के फोल्डर में ये इमेजेस क्यों सेव कर रहे हो? ध्यान कहाँ रहता है आपका व्हाट्सएप काका? ये फॉरवर्ड भेज देना।
किसको? सुबह सुबह आपको यह पैगाम देना है, आपको सुबह का पहला सलाम देना है। सूरज की रोशनी घुले चाय की चुस्कियों में, सूरज की रोशनी, सूरज 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 सूरज। गुजरे आपका यह दिन खुशियों में। सुबह सुबह आपको यह पैगाम देना है, सुबह सुबह आपको यह पैगाम देना है, आपको पहला सलाम। बेटा बेटा ब्लॉग मत करना बेटा, बेटा बेटा प्लीज। तुमने अपनी मां को अपना OnePlus 5 तो दे दिया, मगर यह नहीं सोचा कि यह फोन आधे घंटे चार्ज होकर पूरे दिन चार्ज रहता है। 1 मिनट की फुर्सत नहीं मिलती मुझे बेटा, 1 मिनट।
So that was a small video revealing on a jovial note how apps may behave if they were people, how apps may speak to us if they were people. So moving ahead, Albert Einstein, who needs no introduction, once said, "I fear the day that technology will surpass our human interaction. The world will have a generation of idiots." And unfortunately, the 21st century is kind of giving us this impression that technology has surpassed human interaction. You see, although we are technologically, scientifically more advanced than ever before, we are at a period when the happiness index of the entire planet has decreased, the suicide rates have increased, the depression rates have increased, and divorce rates have increased. In fact, it is said that in the year 2019 alone, there were 10,000 students who committed suicide in India simply because of depression caused because of various types of distractions. Let me give you a small understanding now with the help of GPS that we generally use to commute from one place to another. So suppose you're commuting from one place A to a place B in London, as shown on the slide. Now, generally when we use GPS, we have this assumption that I'm using GPS so that it can benefit me, I'm the beneficiary, and this is something which can benefit me without causing any demerits. And so say you start using GPS, hypothetically speaking, you start using this and you reach point B the first time you use it. The consequence of that would be that you would invest your faith on the technology, the software, GPS that is. And so the next time when you use it, you would have an assumption that this will definitely take me to the desired location. But see, the second time when you use this GPS, it takes you from point A to not point B, but to a point closer to point B. Then you may tell yourself, probably there was a technical issue, technical error. That's why I didn't reach point B, but I reached a place which was adjacent and near point B. And suppose the third time you use it, it takes you from point A and not to point B, but to point C. Now, at this time, you may start questioning the authenticity of the software. And say then you decide to go back home, but then it drops you in some other city. It kind of gives the route to some other city. You would naturally decide to get rid of this software. Now, this is very relatable and very understandable because it's talking about the physical motion, which is on the gross platform. But when we use technology, this is essentially the result that many of us experience, because all social media platforms are designed in such a way that they not only cater to some of our demands, but they make us cater to their demands. And what I mean by that is that we may start using social media with an intention in the mind to reach a particular destination, to acquire a particular knowledge, but more often than not, we may find ourselves going to some other websites, straying away from the purpose of beginning to use the social media platform. And so a simple question can be asked when you use any social media platform: who is actually the beneficiary? You have an assumption that you're being benefited, but for instance, Mark Zuckerberg, who created Facebook, do you think he had in mind only your benefit? Or did he also have in mind the benefit that he would be getting by collecting your data? So this is an important question. Every manufacturer, every producer of any software primarily have their desires and their benefits in mind rather than your benefits. Like for instance, if you want to consider how you're benefiting Facebook, Facebook is not going to think, okay, here is a student who is preparing for CET examination. Let me tailor my Facebook newsfeed so that this student can be benefited. No, the Facebook is concerned about how many pages you are going to like, what sort of websites you are going to like, and what sort of ads they can in turn show you so that you can become the customers of various startups and various companies. So that brings us to the important question: is digital technology good or bad? Is it good or bad? Now, some of you might be thinking, no, I strongly feel it's good. I strongly feel it's good. That's why the economy of the country has increased. The economy of the planet has increased. Well, a few others may be thinking, no, I think it's really bad. I think it's really bad. But, let's get the understanding correct by asking the following question: is knife good or bad? What do you say? Is knife good or bad? So just give us a few seconds so that we can set this presentation right. I think the slides are not proceeding to the next slide. In the meantime, So we are back. The question is knife good or bad? Is knife good or bad? Now it depends on how it is used. In the hands of a physician, it is good. In the hands of a thief, it is destructive. So whether knife is constructive or destructive depends on who uses the knife, with what knowledge they use the knife. So similarly, even digital technology can be used for a constructive purpose or destructive purpose. In fact, this entirely depends on how much control do we have with our minds. Is it that our mind is controlling us, or we are controlling the mind? So there is a very nice revelation given in this ancient wisdom embedded in the literature referred to as Bhagavad Gita in India, where Lord Krishna mentions to Arjuna that the mind is the best of friends. It is the best of friends for one who has conquered it. But the same mind is the worst of enemies for one who has not conquered it. So in the 6th chapter, 6th verse, he says, for him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remains the greatest enemy. So next up, we have a small video on the subject matter, weak minds.
Hi friends. Hi. Today we move on to the next level. To separate the boys from the men, girls from the ladies, and such matters. Fatso. Shameful. Roll number 2.
I can't.
Rubbish. Roll number 4. Pathetic. Roll number 5.
I hate you.
But
I hate you.
roll number 8. Disconnect, 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 disconnect. He's done it! He's done it! Another internet addict reclaims his life. Now it's your turn.
That's how youngsters, that's how they feel when they have to disconnect themselves from internet, disconnect themselves from smartphone or digital devices. In fact, nowadays it is said that on WhatsApp, your last seen may be like 8 seconds ago. But when it comes to books, it is like last seen 8 months ago. I think the presentation will be displayed soon, the same slide. In fact, earlier, nightmares used to be considered as, when you get a bad dream. But now nightmares is when you don't have Wi-Fi and you don't have battery. So just stay tuned so that in a few seconds, we'll move on to the next segment with the presentation. So this is the video you can notice where WhatsApp last seen 8 seconds ago, books last seen 8 months ago. Nightmare is when you have low Wi-Fi and low battery. So how can we manage digital distraction? This is the essential question of this session, today's session. Firstly, we would have to understand the benefits of having boundaries, defining boundaries in life. Boundaries are such that they can, especially when you define your boundaries, that gives you freedom. Boundaries and constraints give you freedom. They give you freedom. How? You may ask the question, how? Like, let me give you the example. For instance, say someone is going to gym in order to work out, build his biceps. Now, the gym trainer would give a particular schedule to any, gym enthusiast. So the schedule would be like every day, probably 1 or 2 hours he would have to spend in the gym. He has to control his diet. He has to control his physical exercises. And this would give him the opportunity to build his muscles, to become more healthy. Now, in one way of looking at this is that you may say, oh, this is very tedious, a lot of constraints. There are a lot of constraints. This guy has to spend 1 hour every day in the gym. He has to sweat. He has to exert a lot of energy, burn a lot of calories, and it is not desirable. Why should he go to the gym? He can just stay at home and eat and do his work. But we realize that this boundary gives him the freedom in the future, where with a good body, he can be more healthy, he can do better activities, he can focus better in his life. And this is something which we can notice in all spheres of life. Like for instance, cricketers, you take the example of Virat Kohli. It is not that Virat Kohli eats anything and everything. In fact, he turned recently into a vegetarian so that he can get more freedom to play cricket with a better health, better mental health and physical health. So we have so many examples of personalities who have voluntarily embraced boundaries and constraints in order to experience freedom. Let me give you an example. Suppose you're just walking on a flat surface and there are like 10 wells ahead of you. So one perception, one way of looking at this scenario is you may think, okay, let me exercise my freedom by exploring the wells. Let me get into the well and explore my freedom. So in this scenario, you may get stuck inside the well. You may get caught inside the well and you may lose your freedom to move. But when you set a boundary to yourself and tell yourself, no, I will walk on the surface, but I won't go inside the well, then you are getting more freedom. Your freedom is more. So boundaries are very helpful. Boundaries are very helpful. Like when you're using your smartphone, let me give you an example. It is not necessary for you to immediately respond to a message, immediately respond to a notification or a call. Because by doing that, what you're doing is you're allowing someone else to decide your activities. You're not deciding your activities. So by setting boundaries, like you may tell yourself, I will check my smartphone 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour in the evening. That's it. I'm not going to use it otherwise. Exception being emergency calls. So when you have such boundaries, that can help you a lot. And when you're especially trying to study, say you're studying organic chemistry, preparing for your CET examination. Now, the most congenial environment will be where you're away from your smartphone or digital devices. It is said that when a smartphone is placed right next to you, even though you're not using it or utilizing it, there is some amount of attention which is getting drained away because of the mere presence of the smartphone. So experts and successful people suggest that if you are really if you are trying to focus on a particular activity, you would rather prefer to keep the smartphone in an adjacent room where you can't see it. Same thing applies to any smartphone or digital devices. And the next solution, so the first solution is to set boundaries. The next solution is what psychologists and medical researchers across the leading universities of the world recommend today. They recommend that the process of meditation is very empowering. It strengthens the mind. In fact, several studies have been done on this process. It is said that meditation gives a natural high through the brain's happiness center. It improves the neural density, it improves the prefrontal cortexes, and ensures that we feel happy without having to depend on external factors. In fact, it is also said that the number one pleasure chemical which we are all after, which keeps us high, that is dopamine, gets produced even when we practice meditation, but naturally, very naturally. When we use digital devices, what happens is that the release of dopamine becomes sporadic and it gets released artificially, sometimes very high, sometimes low. So we become very conditioned. It's like, I remember when I was a high school going boy, I was really attracted to visiting and exploring places in South India. So when I'd been to this place in South India that was infested with a lot of elephants, and I saw a huge elephant, massive elephant tied to a small woodpeck. The elephant was a huge 11 feet tall with massive tusks, but was tied to a small woodpeck. So I asked the elephant trainer, how is it that this huge mammal is being controlled by you, a small creature, and tied to a small woodpeck with a rope? So the guy smiled at me and said, it is a consequence of conditioning. The elephant is conditioned. When the elephant was small, when it didn't have the sufficient strength to escape, we tied it to a woodpeck. And now, although it is a huge mammal, the moment it sees its leg tied to a rope, it feels that it has lost its freedom. So likewise, you see that in the modern generation, people are getting conditioned by smartphones, conditioned by social media platforms, TV shows, like movies, TV series. So meditation is something which can help us be unconditioned by these external factors and still simultaneously be happy. So that brings us to the point. I'll just take 5 minutes more. How do we practice meditation? How do we practice meditation? There are various forms of meditation which would be displayed on the slide in a few seconds. There are various forms of meditation which we will discuss in a few seconds. You see, we have breath awareness meditation, loving kindness meditation. Breath awareness meditation is where you simply breathe and you focus on breathing. You focus on your breathing. It's also called pranayama. Then there is loving kindness meditation where you simply contemplate on all the good things that has happened in your life and feel happy. Like there are two approaches that you can adopt in life. One is the optimistic approach, another one is a pessimistic approach. Optimistic approach is where you only count the good things that has happened in your life and you're happy and satisfied. Or you can adopt the pessimistic approach where you only focus on criticizing people, looking at what is not good in your life and feeling, like insecure and unhappy. So this is a loving kindness meditation where you try to nurture an attitude of gratitude. And then we have movement meditation, which is also referred to as asanas. You might have seen various yoga practitioners doing, postures, various postures like gymnastics and asanas. This is something which can, make the mind body align with one another and give you a feeling where you feel calm, you feel peaceful. And finally, we have this process of mantra meditation, which is a very powerful process, which involves the benefits of the other processes also as per experts. So let's take a quick look at what this mantra meditation is all about, or at least let's briefly view how this mantra meditation is perceived in the society today. The society today has various faiths. Let's look at what do the major faiths say about mantra meditation. So we have Islam. In Islam, they say that repetition of the spiritual vibration, Allah, is something which is recommended and which is part of mantra meditation. And we have Christianity as well, where it is said, hallowed be thy name, where the Bible talks about chanting the holy names, which is synonymous to mantras. and reaping the benefits of the same. They use rosary beads for mantra meditation. In Hinduism, we have Tulsi Mala, neem beads, and Tulsi Malas. It is also recommended that repetition of holy name of the Lord in the form of mantra. And in Sikhism, again, we have Guru Nanak who says that in the early hours of the morning, I meditate on the grace of the true spiritual sound. So mantra meditation is something which is universally practiced by people, and it has given benefits that have really transformed the lives of many youngsters, especially. In fact, I just came across a small video talking and referring to a PhD thesis that was done in Florida State University pertaining to mantra meditation, a very interesting one. So we have the video now, which will be played in a couple of seconds.
A clinical test. A clinical test of the benefits of mantra chanting was performed on 3 groups of 62 subjects, males and females of average age 25. They chanted the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra 25 minutes each day under strict clinical supervision. Results showed that regular chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra reduces stress and depression and helps reduce bad habits and addictions. These results formed a PhD thesis at Florida State University.
So that was the video on the benefits of mantra meditation. Now let's quickly recap what we have discussed so far. So to summarize, first we looked at how digital technology, when used indiscriminately, can consume our attention and productivity. And then we discussed how it's like a knife that can either be used for constructive or destructive purposes. We also mentioned how we have to define our boundaries. Boundaries and constraints give freedom. We need not necessarily feel obliged to answer every message and call immediately. We can set time durations for the same and focus on our goals, achieving our goals and ambitions. And then we also spoke of digital technology being not entirely designed, keeping our happiness in mind, but rather the benefits of the producers in mind. Finally, I mentioned how meditation techniques can help us stay unaffected from the temptations of devices like smartphones and PCs. So that is the conclusion of this session. And I hope you all have some positive takeaways from this session on decoding digital distraction. So I thank all the students for attending this session, and I hope you would find more merits from our upcoming sessions. Thank you. I think
It's already late. Where's Arjun?
He's looking for universities, right? Maybe he's held up there.
You look so tense. By the way, did you get to choose the university?
No, I'm unable to find an university that meets my requirements.
Whoa. Meet your requirements? What exactly are you looking for?
I'm looking for a place that gives me an opportunity to grow, to excel, to invent, and to innovate. I want to be a part of an institution that paves my way to discover myself and to witness the world moving forward in technology. I want to go to a place that sets a futuristic pattern of education filled with ideas and radical performances. Basically, I want to live my dream.
Dayanand Sagar University. Live the dream.
Okay, lovely. Good evening to all of you. Am I audible? You're able to hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're audible.
Audible. Okay. So can I begin?
Yes, yes, sir. Please, please.
Okay. ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. Lovely good evening to all of you. I'm very glad to participate in this program where in some sense, for some crazy reason in the Indian context, this particular group of people or students are always subjected to probably the maximum stress that one can actually imagine in the educational system. So don't bother. Last few years, especially the last year, has been very, very stressful on all of you, mainly because of the pandemic and also staying at home, not meeting your friends, not going to schools. Yet everybody keeps saying, please be careful, you are in 12th, you are in 12th, so many things. I think what I will do in the next 30 odd minutes is not really show you any slide or anything, but I will share some of the few things that I have probably picked up in my lifetime, and also maybe give you some few ideas which you may like it, or maybe you will find it a little different to what you have heard so far. The title of my general address today would be Science as a Way of Life. ವಿಜ್ಞಾನ ಜೀವನದ ಒಂದು ಕಲೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ. And I also imagine that most of you would know Kannada. So in case if I switch over to Kannada in the middle, please don't feel uncomfortable. All of us have this fascination for science. Everybody says you should take science in PUC or pre-university. And for some, again, unknown reasons, everybody thinks today science would mean physics, chemistry, mathematics, and biology. Of course, you do hear several new things nowadays, including artificial intelligence, big data analytics, computer science, IT, so many things. But fundamentally, what is this science? If you think that science is a way of life, then there must be some different definition to science. Is there a connection between science and life? Why is it that all of us are running behind maybe only jobs? So maybe people say you do engineering, then you will get a job. So getting a job, is it the final aim of this entire education process? So many questions keep pondering in one's mind. So I will spend the first 5-6 minutes to clearly tell you what do I really understand by science and how our life is intricately connected to science. It is usually said, if you can understand your nature and culture, you will have a sound future. Let me repeat. If you can understand your nature and if you can understand your culture, your future is secured. So what is this nature? Science, according to me, is a very simple definition. It is just understanding the nature. When I say nature, nature refers to the nature of the human being as well as the nature in which we all live. It appears long back, an incident in Greece is quite interesting. You would have heard about the Greek philosopher Socrates. Socrates was a very well-known philosopher even in those days, and I think even till date people do talk about him because of the profound thoughts. One day he was apparently along with his students. He was very busy discussing certain things, and the local king apparently came and stood at the door. Socrates did not really figure out who has come in, so he continued doing what he was doing. The king really got very wild. Here I am, the king of the entire kingdom, and this man who is supposed to be our self-proclaimed philosopher, he doesn't even bother to meet me, doesn't even bother to greet me. Then he just barged into the meeting and then said, do you know who I am? Socrates very coolly spread a very big map of the entire world and said, see, we live in a big universe. And in that universe, there is a small portion called solar system. And in that solar system, we have another small planet called Earth. And Earth comprises of so many countries. And Greece happens to be only a small portion of it. In Greece, there will be millions of people. Now you tell me, whom do you really represent? This instant spread actually gives us a complete idea of where do we really live. We all think we take everything for granted. But if you look at the laws of nature and the way the whole thing has evolved, if the distance between the Earth and the Moon were to be off by even 0.1%, or the distance between the Sun and the Earth were to be off by even 0.1%, there would have been no life on the Earth. That means there is a precise natural force that seems to be governing the life on the so-called planet Earth. For a long time, according to astronomy, we believed that planet Earth is the only place where life could exist. But today, the recent inventions show that there are more than 65 exoplanets where life is likely to be possible. They are all, of course, out of our own solar system. So when you understand nature, everything around you is mysterious. What we seem to understand today of the nature probably corresponds to something like 5 to 10%. Neither do we have full knowledge of what is there above us, nor do we have any knowledge of what is there below us. When I say below us, today our input on the crust of the earth is also equally perplexing. Of course, in Bangalore, we all dig borewell, go up to 1,000 feet and find then there is no water. But what happens if you keep on drilling? There seems to be a region where we say that extreme temperatures do exist below the earth. Then we do not know how all of this actually came together. So science, in some sense, if you look at the external nature, which is made out of 5 important elements, namely water, then again sky, earth, and then of course the important breath that we all do, the entire vayu as it is called, and of course fire. This is also popularly referred in conventional jargons as panchabhutas. So science is a systematic process of understanding nature. For a long time during the days much before Galileo, people always used to say it is the sun which is actually rotating around the earth. But then again, things have changed and so much of advancement has taken place. Because you are all in second PUC, you would be very fond of definitions. If you need a definition for science, science is all about asking the question why and systematically going and finding answers to those questions. Then you will ask me what is so fascinating about it. The more you understand the nature, obviously your own inner self is also going to evolve, and man is also highly scientific in some sense. Because among all the living creatures, Homo sapiens is the only species who is capable of analyzing and understanding what he sees. In fact, he is probably one of the few species who has that fantastic gift of laughing. In fact, animals cannot actually laugh, and animals do not have the capability or the innate capability to perceive the nature, understand, analyze. And of course, man also has the wonderful or probably the destructive nature of spoiling everything and trying to establish his own supremacy over the planet. Now, if you say science is all about asking the question why, then you will ask me, what is engineering? Then what is technology? Because these are the 3 questions that we always keep hearing a lot about in our own lifetime, not starting from your 10th standard, but even in the public discourse. If science is defined as something asking a question why and finding answers to that, engineering is something where you actually ask a question why not. And in technology, you don't ask any questions. You take it for granted. Let me explain this with the help of a very simple example. Before I go to those examples, I also would like on this occasion to just recall what some of the greatest scientists have done. There's just about 2 of them so that you will understand how science has got a profound influence on the entire culture and the evolution of the mankind. I am sure most of you who are listening to me today would understand or heard the name Madame Curie. Now, Madame Curie, according to me, is one of those noblest individual, and of course, she is a great scientist who won Nobel Prize twice to have ever lived on this earth. Not just because of the way she invented things, but the way she actually found a purpose in her life. She probably is the only scientist who took all her patents in the name of the humanity. She said, all my inventions have to ultimately reach the common man, and the human race should get actually benefited. Madame Curie is famously credited with trying to understand the nuclear reactions and the radioisotopes. In fact, the uranium, couple of the isotopes were actually invented by her. When she invented this, all that she could figure out was where does this uranium fit into the periodic table. Never did she imagine that this particular radioisotope one day would solve and save millions of lives across the world. Today, friends, how does the structure of uranium-235 or its isotopes, how can we actually make them in the laboratory? And what is their fundamental chemical nature? How much of radioactivity comes out? Because if you take a small quantity of radioisotope, what is the half-life of that? These are all questions which actually come under the category of science. When does it become an engineering system? We would ask a question, can I make use of the heat that is generated out of a radioactive reaction for something useful? Maybe it could be a nuclear reactor, or it could be a radiation or chemotherapy that I would do. Then it becomes engineering, because there I asked a question, can I do something out of this? Why not? I try this out. When does it become a technology? It becomes a technology where touchwood, none of us should really have it, because cancer is actually the next greatest catastrophe that is sweeping over the earth, especially in India also. It is actually spreading at a very rapid rate. And if you shouldn't have cancer, but then for more than 70 to 80% of the cancer today has become completely curable. You go to a hospital, this chemotherapy is applied on a routine basis, and nobody even goes inside and finds out what is there inside that equipment. What do they do? Doctors say, don't worry, you take this therapy. When you're taking it, maybe you will have some vomiting, you will lose appetite, but after 6 months, you will be fine. That's the power of technology. On that day, maybe hundreds of years ago, if Marie Curie had not made an attempt to understand the radioactive reactions, maybe today we would not be saving lives. That is science. And not only she found out what it is, but she took all the patents in the name of humanity. Even today, Marie Curie Foundation gets billions of dollars, and all of that gets into supporting students. There are what are called as Marie Curie fellowships. Even some of you who are actually in the audience today, you will be able to apply for that, both for your undergraduate studies, postgraduate studies, postdoctoral studies. It is open for all the human beings on the earth. This, my dear friends, is a very, very important message that one should have. What is our final purpose in life? What is our goal in life? Is it just to complete engineering, complete something else, and get a job and then look at our own selfish needs? Or can we move beyond all of this and ultimately make our life extremely purposeful, extremely useful to the common man? I am sure that all of us in the audience today who have been listening, we know the names of our parents. Probably we know, half a dozen names. But then why do we remember the names of people like maybe Marie Curie? Why do we remember people like, say, Swami Vivekananda, Paigambar, or anybody else? People who live for others alone are remembered by this world, not people who live for themselves. This actually is a very important lesson, that your final purpose of education should be to serve the society. Again, in the year 1578, there was a very interesting incident that took place near Liverpool. There was a young boy who was in high school like you. He was actually demonstrating a small exhibition in a school where they were looking at science. And in those days, the British Empire was ruling virtually all over the world. And they had a very good methodology by which the industrial revolution was just on the horizon. And they were supporting several experiments. Now, though they were the days where we did not even hear about electricity, Michael Faraday was the name of this young boy who had actually set up an experiment. And that experiment is something all of you would have read. It's something like you have magnetic lines of force, two magnets were there. If you cut the magnetic lines of force, automatically an EMF is generated. This is something that you study, if I remember right, in 8th standard. Now, this demonstration he had done very nicely, that he had a needle which would actually move, and there were two magnets, and he was very fond of asking visitors to just break the magnetic lines of force, and when the needle moved, the shine or the brightness with which that boy's face shone, he was very excited. But a British noble who was walking through, he was very annoyed. He said, "What is so great about it? You have just kept two magnets. You're trying to show that when magnetic lines of force are cut, there will be something is happening to the needle. What is so great about it?" This boy was so confident about his invention, he said, "Sir, please watch out. Whatever I am demonstrating today, for the next 1,000 years, people will build devices using my invention. And they will not only build, they will start paying for my using my invention." Friends, all of you would agree with me. Even today, we are paying electricity bill. This particular invention of Michael Faraday is the foundation on which the entire system of energy conversion mechanisms, including electric bulb, including all the things that we see today, are hinged upon. So magnetic lines of force, when they are cut, produces an EMF, is fundamental science. When does it become an engineering issue? Maybe several 100 years later, Thomas Alva Edison came out with a small bulb. Then again, he produced maybe a electric bulb. Electric motors were invented. Electric pumps were invented. And today we take everything for granted. I don't think most of you are in the house, your mother would be switching on the water, which will pump the water from the sump tank to the overhead tank, so that when you open the tap, you get water. So this is again the power of technology. So just to put it in a nutshell, man has always lived his life in such a manner that he has tried to understand the forces of nature. He has tried to understand the mysteries of nature by always asking the question, why not, and then tried to harness the powers of nature. This entire logical process is what we call as science. Of course, this does not mean that this entire process is just an exercise where you keep on finding out some unknown things. But he has also made sure that in this process, his life becomes better. The life on the planet is much better. People are able to move around from one place to another place comfortably. The entire village today, the entire world today has become something like a global village. But you will ask me, what is so special about this nature? Is this connected in some way to the human being? Because whatever I told you in the beginning, our idea today is to understand nature as well as culture so that our future is secure. If you take the human body, this probably is the greatest invention that whomsoever has created. Even today, we have understood probably 15 to 20% of the human brain. In United States of America, about 15 years ago, of course, this project is still continuing. People wanted to reproduce an artificial eye. Eye, for example, all of us who are able to see this, listen to whatever I am speaking today, the eye is such a wonderful organ that they spent close to $25 billion, yet we have failed to reproduce a bionic eye. If I ask you a question, whether people are rich and poor today, everybody will say, "Sir, we are very poor. We have to write CET. We should get a good rank. My parents are putting pressure. Maybe I should get into a good university, get a job," so on and so forth. The list goes on and on. But for 1 second, if I say that I am going to give you, say, 10 crore rupees, you give me or you donate one of your eyes, will you do it? Neither will I. If you go by that, at least if you take the cost of 2 eyes that all of you have, you are worth 50 crore rupees as on today. We can't reproduce a limb. We can't reproduce an ear. Of course, forget about reproducing our own brain. That means human body is so very gifted. None of us should feel that we are poor. The fact that you are sitting here and listening to me itself is a miracle, because you belong to that small minority of students who have had the found, great privilege of listening to these kind of classes, preparing yourself better during the course of your education. So if you see these two connections, then the man all along has been one unique creation starting from his DNA. And then you will really figure out how science has been intricately merged with the human evolution. In fact, the greatest scientist who would have lived on the earth is none other than the first man in the primordial days, who actually took two stones. He hit the stone to produce a fire. The moment the fire came up, he was able to make better variety of food. And that curiosity, the innate ability to ask question, is what makes man extremely special. I am sure most of you would have burst crackers during the Diwali day. And when I was a young kid, I am sure if I would like to turn the clock a little back on all of you who are listening, please imagine what you were doing when you were, say, in 5-year-old or 3-year-old, when you're just about becoming mobile. And on a Diwali day, your mother would have lit a small candle or a lamp, and she would say, please don't touch it. And always as kids, we would like to figure out what happens if I touch the fire. And not only will you try to touch it, but immediately it will burn, and then you will take out your hand in a reflex reaction. But then you will not cry, although it hurts, because you are worried that the mother would thump you. Friends, these are some two unique character of human being. Not only you have that innate ability to ask question, but you also have an ability to smile. Please don't forget asking this question why, and then also trying to find out what really happens all around us. I don't know how many of you have looked at the following aspect. There can be no greater chemistry than what happens in the kitchen. You all would have observed your mother cook, but then please go back and find out today what chemical reactions do really take place in the kitchen. There can be no greater place than, this is why we popularly say, kitchen chemistry. The problem with several of these subjects being taught today is you do not really establish a connection between the subjects and what happens in your day-to-day life. For example, if you take rice, rice is cooked actually in a cooker, and we know what comprises of rice. It could be a carbohydrate, and then you also make maybe some lentils, which is normally used in Indian, South Indian cuisine, or you may eat wheat. Certainly in your own biochemistry, you read all of this, but then seldom do we really try to relate what really happens in chemistry classes to what we really see and observe in day-to-day life. Friends, you must be amazed that human body or a human cell is a huge chemical factory. For every 1 second, there are close to 1 million chemical reactions which take place through our body. Thousands and millions of chemical reaction takes place. So please don't feel uncomfortable when organic chemistry, physical chemistry, biochemistry, inorganic chemistry are there in your syllabus. When you read all these chemical reactions and understand the atmosphere composition of gases, the reason why I say you should be scientific in your life is please try to understand the fundamentals rather than trying to mug up several principles. Please don't look at passing CET as your final goal in life. You have to catch hold of the fundamental principles which govern physics, chemistry, mathematics, and biology. Similarly, I do not know how many of you play, because the moment people come to 12th standard, parents also, for some reason, they say, don't waste your time and things like that. But please remember, body should actually sweat every day. This is extremely important for your good health. Please make sure that at least you run or you play every day so that your body gets energized. Now, during this process, when you go to a playground, there can be no greater physics than what you observe in a playground. That is why I normally say it is playground physics. If you take football, for example, when you kick the ball, the way the football travels is nothing but the way your projectile motion happens. If you all play cricket, then the way the cricket ball swings, there is so much of science that is associated with that. I mean, you should be clearly able to understand the difference between swing bowling and spin bowling. There is what is called as Magnus effect. I think the list can actually go on. So one of the things that I urge you to do is to relate the observations in day-to-day life with what you study in your classroom or in your preparation. This would actually help you to remember things, and don't think memory as a basis for any of the advancements in knowledge. Memory is actually only one bit of that. The moment it gets into your subconscious mind by way of experience, automatically the habit of mugging up should stop probably maybe in the initial period of third or fourth standard. Please, for heaven's sake, don't really look at just scoring high marks or getting a rank. You may get into a good institution, but over a period of time, this particular habit of not understanding the fundamental principles will actually cost you dearly. At the same time, there can be no greater biology than what you see in your own bathroom. So, popularly, when I say science, please understand the chemistry in your kitchen, your physics in your playground, and your biology in your bathroom. And better, make sure that you clean your own toilets. It is extremely important to do small things in everyday's life. Because the human brain is a very interesting character. It's a very interesting, I wouldn't say animal, but it's an interesting creation. You should actually, if you go back to the way the psychologists look at how human brain works, they usually say that there is close to 86,000 thoughts which actually go through our mind. It's a mind-boggling thing. Several of these thoughts are repetitive in nature. You keep on repeating this thought process very often. That's why these thoughts, when they come, the way an Indian thinks or the way you think is completely different to how an American thinks, because immediately these thoughts actually come into some shape, and that shape is by way of language. This is what is today being researched heavily in an area called cognitive science. People are trying to understand the connection between consciousness and cognition. Now, this cognition, without getting into details, just remember that your thoughts are going to become into words. Your words will lead into actions. Your actions, when you do it repeatedly, will become your habits. Your habits will dictate your character, and your character will decide your destiny. This actually gives us to the simple task that every day we must be in a position to do several things. And the more you become organized in day-to-day life, it actually builds up your entire personality in a different sense. Friends, remember that great people and great institutions, they do not keep doing extraordinary things. In fact, people become great or institutions become great because they do ordinary things in an extraordinary manner with amazing consistency. They keep on repeating that. Life is full of repetitive actions. If you take the life history of any person, it is very clear that the common factor between me, you, Bill Gates, or anybody XYZ is how they utilize this 24 hours. Time is something which is extremely precious. I am sure you would have heard about it. But then, how organized you are in your day to day life. And this is the reason why simple habits like making your bed, getting up on time, greeting people, saying hello to others, being a good man will actually make you a much more grounded individual in the long run, rather than trying to do some extraordinary things and trying to run behind things. Now, if you do this, you also have to understand mind a little bit more carefully. I am sure people say you are watching mobile phone too much and things like that. But let me tell you, friends, you cannot have technology sweeping over humanity. You are living in such wonderful time that in the next 40, 50 years, you would see what this world had not seen in the last 400 years. There will be so many disruptions that you will see, not just by way of technology, but also by way of pandemic like that you saw recently. That means this is an era of disruptions or disruptive technology. So what do we really do? Because whatever you learn and say get a degree or in a university, this learning is not going to be enough for not more than 5 years. Don't be under the impression that I will just pass CET, my job is done. If I pass another examination or go abroad, my job is done. No. Whatever you learn will be outdated very quickly, maybe a matter of 5 to 10 years. Gone are those days where you read, get a degree, and then go and select a particular profession, and that profession may be sufficient to feed you for the rest of your life. No, you may have to continue this habit of learning forever. This is what Swami Paramahamsa very nicely put, said several years ago. As long as I live, so long do I learn. That means you should get into a different mindset in this entire process of maybe PUC, CET, CBSE, all of this. What is that mindset that you should really change into? I am sure all of you would have watched, say, Cartoon Networks or movies. Any of the latest movies, including the Kannada movie Robert, which seems to be making waves, you all would enjoy. When you go into a movie theater, believe me, the movie is there only for about 1.5 or 2 hours, and no dialogue is spoken twice. No song is played twice. The heroine or hero, they will keep wearing several dresses. The plot is only told once. The story is told only once. But believe me, everybody who is listening to this broadcast or over the internet, all of you are so capable and so confident that you will watch the movie only once, you will come out, and you will be in a position to repeat the entire plot. Why is that? The same level of concentration or same level of enthusiasm and involvement will not be there when you open a book. This is a question that all of you should actually ponder on. When I open a physics book, why is it I don't treat it like a movie? It's all there in the mind. The key is enjoyment. You liked everything that you did, say maybe playing or watching a movie because your mind says that that is enjoyment. Mast maja madbeku. But the same kind of maja doesn't come when you open a textbook, because something tells you in your mind, somehow I should get rid of this. I should read this, get some 40 marks out of 50, and then I am done. Please don't look at life as algebra or arithmetic. If you study well in CET, I will get this. Life is not like that. Life is a wonderful journey through this entire nature that you should actually understand and live and enjoy, because your life is so short. Please remember, all of us who are there on this planet Earth, none of us can escape being alive from this planet. While birth is incidental, death is inevitable. What we really do in between the period is what dictates our life. The only way that we can make something out of life is to ensure that we become scientific in our approach. Never ever lose the curiosity in your entire life, whether it is preparation for CET or PUC or preparing for BE, MTech or PhD. Now, the moment you start enjoying education, learning as a process of acquiring knowledge and wisdom, automatically nothing will become actually hard. If people say you should work hard, hard work pays, I somehow tend to differ, because there is nothing called hard work in life. The moment you enjoy every bit of whatever you do from morning till evening, nothing will be hard. During the daytime, you must be so busy that you have no time to think. During night, you must be so tired that the moment you lie on the bed, you should go to bed. That is the most blessed life one can have. And if you want to do that, the only key thing is treat every day as a new experience and enjoy life. Of course, sir, these are all good things to listen and talk after you stay in IASC, but you come and take the examination. You will realize how differential equation or integral equation, of course, you don't have any partial differential equation, I suppose, in the syllabus. how difficult it is. If we fail, then we face so much pressure and things like that. Now, I do understand this. Don't think that failure is very unique to only you. All of us have failed. Everybody who is actually there in any big position today, they would have failed. I have no shame in admitting I have failed in several of my experiments in Indian Institute of Science. Now, those failures could be very, very frustrating. I have had cases where for 6 to 8 months I have done some experiment thinking that something big will come out, and finally that entire experiment would have gone waste because I would not have made progress. And there are days where I have cried alone. But then this is part of life. But the next day I again get up and go back to the laboratory to make sure how I can make that experiment which failed to work again. And the moment I get answers to the question that I am asking, that is the greatest award that one can get in anybody's life. Because scientist life is one where you remain a student throughout your life because you keep on studying forever and remain young in the mind. When it comes to failure, don't think that you are very unique, because even the nature, if you observe, when lion goes for hunting, it is successful only in about 15 to 20% of its attempt. That means day to day, even to live, it is called as the king of forest. Its success rate is only 15 to 20%. So several attempts may be failure. Please remember, an attempt may be a failure, but then there should not be failure of attempts. I mentioned about Cartoon Network. I will take maybe another 10 minutes to just wrap this up. I told you about Tom and Jerry, Mickey Mouse, and things like that. I don't know how whether you people see Cartoon Network or not, but once in a while, I am always fascinated by the technology that goes behind making cartoon movies. It's a huge amount of science that really gets into this. Did you know that Walt Disney had failed in more than 15 different businesses that he had done in his entire life? In fact, he did not have money, and it was such a weak law that he was living in outskirts of Los Angeles in a place where there was a drainage, it was an abandoned garage, and he only had one shirt and one pant, and then he had to basically wash it during the daytime and then hang it around the thread which he had tied in that particular very godforsaken place. And he had no food to eat, he had to beg and borrow. And it's very fascinating how individuals are made moment they are ready to try out something new. On one of those days when he was pondering over his future, the place was so dirty that there was a small rat which was trying to move up and down on that thread which he had tied, on which he had put his cloth for drying. Now, that rat, a thought occurred to him, what if this rat starts speaking? Friends, rest is history. Mickey Mouse was actually born like that. And today, Walt Disney is a multi-billion-dollar industry. But he again started off with that kind of a situation. So don't get fixated about failures and success and things like that. This entire journey is so fascinating. It is also a crime to compare yourself with another student. Each one of you are so special, and you are so special that you are like wonderful flowers in a garden. And it's a crime to compare yourself with someone else. And make sure that you select good friends, because tell me who your friends are, I will tell you who you are. So it is very essential that you come out with good friendship, which is going to last lifelong, because one good friend is worth probably a library. And friends are not somebody who will keep praising you. So you must always be amidst friends who actually are people who can be role models to your own self. Again, I am reminded of one last incident which actually happened to a teacher in a biology class. Because as students, you always have this habit of trying to prove the teacher wrong. So a student walked in with his hand folded like this and asked the teacher, sir, please tell me what is in my hand. And there were some small pigments which were there on the outer surface of the hand. So the teacher knew immediately that it must be a small butterfly that he is holding. And the teacher said, well, this is the butterfly. The student was very unhappy. Whatever I try, because students have this habit of trying to prove the teacher wrong always. Teacher also wants to make sure that he is better than the students. Then the student asked the second question, sir, please tell me whether this butterfly is alive or dead. Before that, the student also wanted to figure out and say, sir, please tell me whether this butterfly is male or female. So the teacher said that it doesn't matter if I tell male also, this boy will not be in a position to distinguish between the two different varieties of butterflies. So he said it is female. Student was really upset and finally asked the question, please tell me whether this butterfly is alive or dead. This is a very serious question. Suppose if he said that this is alive, then the boy will simply open the hand and the butterfly will fly out. Even then, this teacher would be proved wrong. But suppose if he said that this is dead, I mean, if it's alive, then he can simply close his hands and make sure that poor creature, which is about 15 millimeters in length, and it only lives for about 15 days, is dead. Friends, the teacher said, it is all in your hands. Success, failure, your life is all in your hands. Don't allow somebody else to dictate your life. Never ever allow past experiences, people, and money to dictate what is it that you would be doing. Don't take anything for granted. Unless you are satisfied, you should ask the question why at every stage in your life. You also should ask the question, what is the purpose of my life? Who am I? Why have I come into this world? If you can learn the art of asking these questions and finding answers, that is science. That is the only way life can actually become very meaningful. I am sure most of you are here. In fact, I just mentioned about butterfly. By the way, the wing of a butterfly is so beautiful that today it has led into the emergence of another area called biophotonics. The color that you see on a butterfly is because of total internal reflection of light rather than the pigments. People think it is pigment, but it is not pigment. It has nano-sized ridges on the wing, and we are not able to reproduce those wing of a butterfly even today in the laboratory. Now, having said this, finally, please make sure that you enjoy every moment of your life. And I don't know whether you have an habit of writing diaries and reading books. When I say books, please read books of good English authors or Kannada authors. If you have a habit of writing, reading Kannada, please read classics of Kuvempu, S.L. Bhairappa. So many people are there. Read something which is different than your textbook and cultivate an habit in appreciating good things all around us, because art is science. There can be no greater science than evolution of civilization. The way the Harappa Mohenjo-daro civilization lived, there was so much of technology. So the thing is, science is nature, which means everything is science all around us. So never ever try to distinguish between disciplines. And you should also have the habit of writing your diaries. I don't know how many of you have that. If you don't have, please write diaries. Preparation for CET doesn't mean how you should eliminate the wrong answer, but it also means the right way to find answers. And only way you can find right answer is provided you actually understand the fundamental principles. So read from some good books. It doesn't matter. Maybe you may get some 5 marks or 10 marks less by not memorizing things. But believe me, the habit of asking the question and understanding would take you a long way in this fascinating journey of life. Ultimately, I am sure that most of you would have enjoyed, dosas. And I don't know how many of you are able to make dosas in the house. If you have watched that the tawa which is used for making dosas, if you put a small drop of water on that dosa tawa, what happens? It actually instantaneously evaporates. But the same drop of water, if it is going to reside on a lotus leaf early in the morning when the sun shines, that entire drop of water actually glistens like a diamond. But lotus leaf is also drooping at 30 degrees. And then after some time, when the wind blows, even that drop of water, which shone like a diamond for a short while, goes away. But the same drop of water, if it happens to reside inside a shell and subjected to hydrostatic pressure below the sea, stays there for about 6 months' time, then it becomes an invaluable pearl in its life. Friends, you have to decide whether you want to become that small drop of water on the dosa tawa, which actually instantaneously evaporates, or you want to become a small drop of water on a lotus leaf, which actually shines for a little while, or you want to become invaluable pearl in your life. Remember that you should actually create history rather than becoming part of the history. That is only possible provided you change your life to enjoy, ask questions, keep smiling. These are the only three fundamental things that you should have for a successful life. And this is nothing but science. Never ever take it easy in life, but you should actually make it easy, because whatever has been there yesterday is more like your experience. Yesterday is like toilet paper. It is of no value today, but you should learn from the experience. Today is more like a newspaper, but tomorrow is like a question paper. How do we really go through this entire journey from known to the unknown? We do not know what happens tomorrow. Not that astrology is going to predict something. I wish there was an astrologer who would say what rank you will get in CET. But then that kind of an astrologer is yet to be born. So we do not know what happens tomorrow. So there are a lot of unknown things. But then today is wonderful. Today is ours. So learn from your experience. Live the life to the fullest extent possible. Always ask questions and try finding answers to this. But at the end of the day, make your life meaningful and contribute to the society. Because if you contribute and treat this entire world as yours, life will be more enjoyable. Because if you cultivate scientific way of living, then you will have no regrets. Neither will you go into any wrong company, because at every stage you will be asking scientific question to understand the unknown. On that note, I would say while you should be concerned about participating in competitive exams, learning, please make sure that your information that is being given to you gets converted into knowledge, and that knowledge should get into wisdom. Only when you become wiser, you will be in a position to really live a wonderful life. But while you do that, I don't know how many of you remember, have flown a kite. Now, the kite is a very important thing. If you make a kite, you actually tie from three ends. This is called sutra ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ. And then you have a thread which you hold it in your hand, and the kite keeps on flying high depending upon the air and the surrounding things. But that what you hold in your hand is what are called as your family as well as your value system. Please do not forget to have a nice value system and family life throughout your career. Never ever leave those value systems, because what is very important in life is you should be always worried about these four monsters in life. What are those monsters? These monsters are something that you should make sure that you will never really forget in your life. Monster number one is what is called as pride. And I say this is a monster because whenever you are successful, the moment pride gets into your mind, then you will start looking down upon people who are actually not successful. This pride can actually play havoc with your life. So please make sure that you avoid this pride. At the same time, when you fail, you have to be careful about another monster called bitterness, because the bitterness will make you blame others for your failure. This is a very common syndrome among students. When you are successful, you are very proud and say, I did it. But when you fail, you always find somebody else for it. That is bitterness. But in life, other than your own career, you will also have several successes. You will start climbing the ladder, maybe in your profession. Please be aware of another monster called greed. Because when you become very greedy, then you will actually find ways which are not ethical. You will find cross-cut to go to success, whether it could be corrupt practices. This is where I said value system is very, very important. Because if greed gets in, you are bound to fall. We have seen several people who have been very successful who are at the peak of their career. They have failed miserably because they did not have the correct value system. At the same time, when you are actually falling down, suppose even in your profession, whatever you try, you may fail, maybe quite often. But be aware of another monster called despair. Because the moment there is despair, you will find as if there is no world tomorrow. It's not true. One failure doesn't mean everything is ended. Failure is the fertilizer for success. So please avoid these 4 monsters. Monster number 1 is what I call as pride. Monster number 2 is bitterness. Third is greed. Fourth one is despair. If you can cultivate and enjoy a healthy life and family life, because you cannot have parents like what you have in the Indian parents, they are probably one of the best you can get, because the only motto for their entire life is that you should be successful. Respect your parents, protect your family, have a healthy life, and enjoy this journey. And I would like to stop here by saying, wish you all the very best. God bless you, and I'm sure you will all do very well in your PUC and CET and other examinations, as well as go through the entire journey of life and maybe make a mark for yourself. Thank you very much. We can close the session, if there is no more questions, I will close it.